Well, thank you, everybody. Excuse me. This is not a pretty topic, obviously, and it's unfortunate we're here to celebrate something, and so far we've probably landed a lot of heavy items on your list, for sure. But I am honored to be speaking with you today about the important work taking place in this province to protect the victims of human trafficking. So on this 60th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it is fitting that we've gathered here to think about one of the most serious violations of human rights occurring around the globe, the crime of trafficking in human beings, women, children, and men held against their will. Some of the articles have already been mentioned. I'm going to mention two more. Article 1 of the Universal Declaration declares that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, while Article 4 clearly states that no one shall be held in slavery or servitude-like conditions. Canada, along with, I believe it was 47 other nations, ratified this document on the 10th of December 1948. But 200 years prior to this in the United Kingdom, a groundswell movement to end slavery, led by parliamentarian William Wilberforce, introduced the world's first anti-slavery legislation, the Slave Trade Act of 1807. Since that time, dozens of declarations, covenants, protocols, and conventions, including the Palermo Protocol, the anti-trafficking protocol of the year 2000, as well as countless pieces of anti-slavery legislation and anti-trafficking legislation have been introduced in the UN and in countries around the world, including Canada. As Ben, or the Senator, was saying, only just 3 years ago, we introduced amendments to our own criminal code. However, as we are all acutely aware, equality and freedom from slavery-like conditions has not been achieved in the intervening 60 years since signing the UN Declaration. In fact, far from it. The International Labour Organization notes that in the first years of this 21st century, the abuse of human rights in the form of human trafficking has become a central issue to security and stability worldwide. This organization goes on to note that the movement of people is inevitable in a globalized world. However, while trafficking might be difficult to pin down because of its complexity, its essential components are not in dispute. People who are trafficked enter the process when they are recruited by people or processes, then duped into situations of serious exploitation. Human trafficking is a global problem from which Canada, BC, and Vancouver are not immune. As Alistair was mentioning to us, the U.S. State Department has identified Vancouver as a significant port of concern. In July 2007, the government of BC responded by establishing our office, the Office to Combat Trafficking in Persons, the only one of its kind in this country. Our responsibility is to coordinate all aspects of protecting and safeguarding trafficked persons in collaboration with our partners in border services and immigration, academia, other parts of the provincial and federal government, and most importantly, our community-based organizations, which provide a wide range of services. The office also assists law enforcement in the prosecution of offenders. But human trafficking is a clandestine and covert activity, and the extent of these activities in our towns and cities is extremely difficult to gauge. In fact, the most common and frequent question put to us in our work is, why do we need your office? How extensive is the issue in this province? To which we have no answers, only informed conjecture. As Daphne Brahman noted in her article following our conference in October, Canada has to date issued less than 20 temporary resident permits to trafficking victims in BC over the past 2 years since introducing the mechanism, while during the same period the U.S. provided similar protections to several thousands of individuals. As Ben is saying, our lack of data indicating our lack of recognition of trafficking in persons as a serious issue in this country is a key concern of our office and others working in this area. At one time, the RCMP felt that as many as 1,200 individuals were being trafficked into Canada, with an additional 2,000 or more being moved through the country into the U.S. Certainly, community-based organizations working at the street level would place the number far higher. But let me take a moment to provide you with just a few of the stories coming to the attention of our office since we opened just over a year ago. Some of these were actually mentioned in our article in the Vancouver Sun today. We hear of Central Americans responding to ads, paying for employment placement services and for transport to Vancouver, only to discover there is no job and their money, often in the thousands of dollars, is lost forever. no money, no connections, no possibility of remaining without proper documentation, and no means of returning home. This is human trafficking in the form of labor exploitation, more than likely leading to other forms of exploitation as the person scrambles to bring in income. Often the hopes of an entire family back in the country of origin have rested with the anticipated employment of that one single individual. We've been introduced to Aunt B, who for 20 years has been exploiting live-in caregivers and nannies here in BC through fraudulent recruitment methods, charging of exorbitant placement fees, withholding passports and other personal documents, and the confiscation of earned income on the false premise of debts owed. Aunt B is also guilty of labor exploitation and of placing these caregivers into debt bondage. We've met the young BC girl sold by her father for an exorbitant sum to balance his debts with a local biker gang. And we are following closely the numerous trafficking prosecutions underway in Peel region of Ontario involving young Canadian women who've been moved against their will from small maritime towns to larger centres as fuels for the insatiable sex trade. Our approach is a human rights approach. That means to us, we work to ensure that the needs and wishes of each individual coming to our attention are first and foremost in our planning. We are developing training for those on the front lines of encountering trafficked persons, for example, street nurses and other community and emergency health professionals, transition house and shelter staff, social workers and clinical counselors. Even those responsible for enforcing our employment standards across the province and inspecting licensed premises have asked for our assistance in what to look for and how to respond. It is our challenge then today, tomorrow, and in the days to come to look seriously around us for the existence of human trafficking in our midst, to take this opportunity to find solutions to the dilemma of identifying and protecting trafficked persons, and to ensuring that the activities of traffickers are halted and punished so that this crime is prevented from taking a greater hold in our towns and cities. Thank you.
Thank you very